What is going on, Clippers fans? Welcome to Season 3, Episode 48, I believe, of Clips and Dip. I am Chuck Lockley. We got Adam Oslin, William Updike. The full crew is here. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for watching us. If you want to watch us, you can find us at youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. Today, we're going to talk maybe the worst loss of the Clippers season so far against the Bucks.
I don't know about that, guys.
It's close. And then, of course, we're going to be previewing the upcoming back-to-back and then talking kind of what has to happen after the All-Star break. One big thing we all want the Clippers to work on. Will, Adam, how are you guys doing after that game? Will, you're saying it's not the worst loss of the season. Adam was saying it might be.
I feel like every time we do that, the Clippers say, "Hey, hold my beer." So let's stop doing that until it's truly the worst. And then we can talk about it. I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm gonna leave.
All right, Will's doing all right. Adam, how are you? You had to deal with angry callers last night. How's life in your world?
Yeah, there was a guy who had called in like a week ago and said, "Oh, they're gonna go 25-5 the last 30 games or something like that." Last night, that guy called in and had a much different tone.
He had switched up, is what it sounds like. Let's get into what happened against the Bucks. There was no Norm Powell, which we can talk about. It seems like per Law Murray, it sounded like an issue that would have calmed down during the All-Star break, but the knee soreness is still there. What's our concern level for Norm Powell?
I mean,
DEFCON 1.
That's fair.
Did I finish your sentence, Adam? Is that where you're at?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, no, I have some level of concern. Let me know if he doesn't play on Sunday against Indiana. If he doesn't play at all in the back-to-back, then I'm going to be pretty concerned because they just had the All-Star break. He was just in the three-point shooting contest. He didn't look great. Was that part of the problem?
Well, there was no break for him.
Good point.
Yeah.
He was too busy with all his All-Star duties. Yeah, he had to be shaking hands, kissing babies. It's a lot of work out there. People think it's just a vacation.
Somebody commented on the video I did earlier saying, "Hey, what about this? We bring Norm off the bench." And it's like, no, full stop. Like, Norm is the highest scoring player on the team. He's averaging 24 points per game and shooting 44% from three. He's not coming off the bench. They need him desperately. He completes what is the starting lineup with the best net rating in the NBA. Now, it's only about 150 minutes, I think, so far, but it's not nothing.
Have we lost every game that he's been out?
I mean, that's like 3 full games. You're 3-0 in those.
Have we lost? Maybe not every game, but it's been the last couple of games that he's been out. The Clippers have lost, and I don't think that's a huge surprise to people.
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, he's one of the most vital players on the team. He's been Mr. Consistent. He's their leading scorer. They need him. Period.
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking up his game logs real quick because I want to see if I'm totally lying or if that was correct. Loss. Loss. Yeah, they've lost their last 1, 2, 3, 4 without Norm Powell. Checks out.
Which not surprising.
Yeah, the bench take, that's maybe the craziest take I've heard all year, and there's been some crazy takes. So I hope that person is doing okay. Overall in this game, the Clippers, here's what the Clippers won in this game. Points in the paint, second chance points, fast break points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, turnovers, 3-point percentage. And then in the fourth, they lost a 13-point lead. They did lose free throws 27-19, and the Bucks had 15 in the fourth. I knew it was a lot when I was watching the game, but 15 is insanity. Part of that is the refs. Part of that is the Clippers not being able to defend without fouling, which, Adam, I feel like is something you've brought up when things aren't going well for this team.
Yeah, I mean,
the points in the paint that you started with is also significant.
Yeah.
That shot selection in the offense in the fourth quarter was, it was huge.
Arlo asked me in the fourth, what's the biggest key for the Clippers to pull this out? I said defending without fouling, and that did not happen. Getting 2 fouls on a 3-point shooter like Dame for that to happen, and they were both by Amir Coffey, and he also fouled Brooke Lopez on an and one. It was a rough game for Amir, and I know a lot of people were going after him. Like, I think he's had a really good season overall. It happens. But that was a game where you're up 12 with, I think, 8.5 minutes left. You have to close. And I will say this. While, yes, they outshot them from 3 by 0.5%, the Bucks also made 5 more threes than the Clippers in the game.
Lopez and
This trend has not gone away. The last 11 games now, teams are shooting 40.3% from 3 against the Clippers. That's the highest 3-point percentage against anyone over the last 11 games. And a lot of it's happening in first quarters, where I think the Bucks had 7. Believe it or not, the Clippers are giving up almost 60% shooting from 3 in first quarters the last 4 games.
Holy shit. And we talked about this, I mean, for years, where the Clippers would just start a game and they're down 10. And you're just like, okay, let's battle back right from the start. Is that like the 11-game sample size? That's not insignificant. Like, is it just a fatigue thing? Are we seeing the team be old?
I don't know, because
Adam brought up.
Go ahead, Will.
Well, you brought up too that like not all of them. It's not like they're just giving up wide open shots. Some of these have been well contested, and teams are just shooting above it. And like 11 games, while certainly is a large sample size, I mean, law of averages, you would think that wouldn't carry on forever. I do think we have seen them. We have seen fatigue set in. We have seen them be a step late. I do think that this game wasn't maybe as well timed as we've seen, or like everybody was like clicking as well as we've seen. And of course, there's new pieces, no Norm Powell. You know, things are a little bit up in the air, but it's not like all these shots are wide open. I will say, like that is one thing that is reassuring. It's not like they're just completely giving up on these plays.
Well, it's like last night, Kyle Kuzma, who was shooting 28% from 3, started, I think, 3 of 4. There have been some wonky outlier shooting games against the Clippers that, I don't know, law of averages has to come into effect at some point. I'm just thinking they probably got away with some unguarded threes earlier in the season that went their way, shots that were missed that were wide open, and now that's starting to even out a little bit, where if they're leaving a guy open right now, it feels like they're shooting 100%.
The nice thing, I guess, is there's like 27 games left, so maybe we're going to creep in where right at the end of the season we start getting that good law of averages back, right? Like the last 10 games, maybe teams start actually missing some threes against the Clippers. That would be nice. This was another game where one of the main players for the opposing team didn't finish the game. Giannis didn't play the final 6.5 minutes of this game, which was a big part of them making their comeback, unfortunately. It reminded me of how, Turner went out when they played the Pacers the last time. And we couldn't, a key piece of the other team is out, and the Clippers, for whatever reason, aren't able to capitalize on that.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Like, they did not adjust well to it. I mean, again, you're giving up 36 points in a fourth quarter to a Milwaukee Bucks team without Giannis, and the Clippers could not defend without fouling, depended on it.
Oh,
yeah, super. Just a super rough break. It's interesting that you bring up, though, that like they were a little bit better without Giannis on the floor in that fourth, and I do wonder if just the shortened, prep time coming off the break or something, maybe the game plan wasn't as strong for this game as we've seen in other ones. Maybe Van Gundy needed his rest. You never know, but it wasn't an inspiring performance. And aside from the 3-point shooting, I thought when he was on the court, some of the defense against Giannis, especially, like lacked some of the like physicality and grit that we've seen from this team. Like there was a number of buckets where like he had a wide open lane, and it just kind of felt like maybe guys weren't willing to like bang around or get a body in there. And maybe that's just coming off of a break and being like or maybe it's being a step behind. It might not even have anything to do with people not wanting it so much as like for whatever reason they couldn't quite get there.
Right. Yeah. There wasn't Zoo did not have a field goal attempt in the fourth, which is annoying to see. Adam, who is having phone connection troubles, mentioned that he was more upset about it last night, and then when he went and watched some of the film, he was a little less upset about it. But it is an issue, right? Like we can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Law put out a stat. I mean, this has been going on all year long, but basically the first 3 quarters of a game. This is according to Law Murray of The Athletic. Zubac is he's around 3 field goal attempts a quarter, 3 to 3.5 around there, and then it drops to around 2. So you're seeing at least a 33% decrease in fourth quarters, and so. When you say he has 0, it maybe doesn't. That's only 2 less, but from a percentages, standpoint, that is significant. I don't think that was the reason alone. Obviously, that they lost this game. I mean, as Adam said, they couldn't defend without fouling. I think it's like one of those things that just we've all become heightened, like we're more and more aware of, just because it's such an ongoing thing. So yeah, I wouldn't go as far as to say that that's what lost them the game, but it's like it's just another one of those sort of puzzling things that for a team that is doing a lot right, it is still just kind of. It's just kind of confusing. It's kind of I don't know how many times Zoo has answered in the post game now. Like what happened in the fourth, or how many more times the guy can say he's trying to look for a shot, but he's not a shot creator. So it's kind of determinant upon his teammates to find him in those areas. And I don't know. I don't know where that comes from, because I do think the level of trust that everyone has in Zoo is certainly different this year, and even last year.
Way better,
Since Harden's arrival, I really feel like the trust in Zoo offensively, it looks a lot different. But I do still wonder if there's a thing where all these guys are so used to carrying a team late in game, and I mean it. I mean any one of them. I mean even like if Norm has the ball or something, and sure he's not used to carrying the team as a starter, but he's certainly used to carrying even this year's team to a certain extent, to where maybe the tunnel vision is coming into effect a little bit. And again, not the reason they lost this game. It's just one of those things that's like it's like the 3-point shooting thing where like opponents are shooting so well. It's just a troubling trend. It's a troubling trend. Although one seems infinitely easier to fix than the other.
100%. It sucks too, because I mean Zoo had 20, 15, and 4 blocks. He had one of his better games like of the season, just obviously box score wise, but the fourth was rough. We've seen the Ben Simmons and Zoo pairing get outscored the entirety that they've shared the floor to this point. It's not been a lot of minutes, but that's not I don't think that's a big shock to people. There were some people being critical of Ty Lue's rotations last night. I think it's a little fair.
Yeah. So I think with that one, Ty Lue did sort of express that he was interested in trying as many machinations like around Ben Simmons. Like he has been in a rotation with he has been in a rotation with every player that is on the roster. That's gotten playing minutes in those 2 games. So I think that it kind of makes sense. I don't know. To me, the Zoo and Ben Simmons thing is kind of like a doy. Like I just that pairing.
Yeah, who'd have thought?
Like it just seems so obvious that I don't even know why you have to try. But hey, he's the basketball mind, not me. Who knows? If it would have worked, I'd have to be over here eating my hat or something. But what does seem interesting, and is a thing that I think you could have predicted, is that all of Ben Simmons' best lineups come next to Nico Batum, which I think is great because that seems to me to be a natural pairing when we have bench minutes, when we have likely either Kawhi-less minutes or Harden-less minutes. That to me seems like a likely pairing, but it's nice that there are some things that are working as far as Ben Simmons goes, especially for his confidence. You kind of like, I think it's understandable if we go through a stretch where, you know, the fit doesn't seem as easy as as a parent. But I think for like his confidence and like where he's at right now, like I love that he came out the gate that game one that was so great. And you know, yesterday overall solid, not the greatest offensive game.
Yeah, and again, like it's his second game too, so it's like I
Yeah,
feel like it's one of those things where we all really wanted it to work, and it was so good in the beginning that we're like, well, great. It's like, oh yeah,
well, it's
there's
still the
still some
beginning,
things
I
to
would
work out.
say.
Oh yeah, just like Kawhi's return, right? Right when it started, it was like, whoa, he's looking a lot better than where I thought he would be. But then as you get into it and the rhythm of trying to get back, things don't go well. The Clippers were outscored by 11 points per Lob Murray. In the 3.5 minutes, Leonard was off the floor in the fourth quarter. Getting Kawhi back, Adam Osman, who should be back soon, always says that one of the biggest things the Clippers can do to improve is just getting Kawhi Leonard to 36 minutes per game. He's at 32
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
Like that is such a big. I mean, not we sound like a broken record. We've said it for the last 4 years, 5 years. Like just getting him back to the normal minutes should solve some of these problems.
of course. Yeah, yeah. And I wonder of that 11 game sample size, how many was Kawhi playing in? Not that he's personally responsible for the opposing team's 3-point shooting percentage, but I think just his presence
Oh my
gives a second
god,
thought out
yeah.
there. Because there's like, I think there's obviously a mental thing to certain defenders as well. Like Adam and I were talking about how, you know, some of these shots are well defended, but I think it's a difference if the defending player is more of an imposing force mentally, if that makes sense. Like you
No,
see
I mean,
Kawhi,
yeah.
you see Kawhi defending you. I think something different is crossing your mind than Amir Coffey, even if Amir Coffey is guarding you very competently.
100 reputation precedes itself in the NBA
Yeah. Oh
for
yeah. 100%.
sure. Um,
Yeah, I've never seen Amir Coffey, you know, block a dunk with a single middle finger. So you know that's not in the back of your head.
yeah. So they lost that one, which is not good. They have a back-to-back coming up. This is very funny. The Clippers, these 3 games against the Bucks, the Pistons, excuse me, the Bucks, the Pacers, and the Pistons, that's 4, 5, 6 in the East, seeding wise. So kind of a
Yeah, and
brutal.
then they are technically on the road to take on the Lakers twice, I believe.
Yeah. So
Rough
that's not
stretch of
ideal.
games. Yeah, rough
Rough
stretch of games.
Which do we think Kawhi sits out? Which would you prefer? Does it? And I don't mean this as a disrespect to these two teams. I don't mean that at all. Does it matter? Both these teams are playing pretty good basketball right now. You know what I mean? Like they're not bad. The Pistons are young, which is a pain in the ass for this old team. Do you prefer him to sit out any either of these games? Does it matter to you?
It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, it's
It
not
doesn't
like
matter to me. They're like I just think these are both pretty difficult games. I guess I would say it just depends on how you want to play the rest coming up into the Lakers series because I think you have to at a bare minimum split those games. You've already dropped one to the
oh yeah.
Lakers in embarrassing fashion. So you have to at least win one of these. And so I think if you want to play him so he has the most rest going into that lineup, you play him the first night of the back-to-back against the Pacers. If you want him to have the most consecutive rest through travel, maybe you have him play the Pistons game, and then it's less days rest, but less you know, like less travel play, if that makes sense.
Totally. No, yeah, that's a really good call.
So
I
yeah,
think
I
that
think it just depends on how you want to game that because either one of these teams is going to be really good, and this Pistons team, like young team, this is not a great matchup. Neither of these are particularly great matchups on the road for this team.
I think the Pistons one is the must win of these two because I was looking at the Pistons schedule. This is going to be the second night of a back to back for the Pistons and the final of a 3-4 for them. With
Okay.
they're they're in San Antonio and then they're in Atlanta and then they're back in Detroit to play the Clippers. So like travel wise, they got kind of hosed on this one. And if they're going to be a tired team, like the Clippers got to beat tired teams. You know what I mean? The Pistons are really good at rebounding. They're top 10 in each major category. They have a guy in Cade who can give the Clippers issues. Like But I think with the rest situation,
and they just have momentum on their side right now. Like, they're on a 4-game win streak. They've been snapping off wins. Like, they're looking like they got something cooking finally.
they look like a legit, like where they're seated, like they're not like a weird, you see some teams, you're like, well, they're not going to stay at 6 or whatever it is. And I think the Pistons probably will. The Pacers game is also difficult because the Pacers get 3 days off before they play the Clippers.
Yeah.
So like that one might be the one to punt. I don't know.
Yeah, that's tough.
They're not a good defense. They're not a good rebounding team, but they will shoot the lights out. Like this is, I don't know, man. Like they gotta, we know this obviously. They have to go at least 1-2 like on this trip. I don't think they're getting to 2-1 on this road trip. I don't think they're winning this back to back. Like I don't think they're going 2-0 over the back to back. I would like them to, but I don't want them to.
No, every time I get too hyped on how they're gonna do on a little road trip, they always disappoint me. Adam is he's gonna have to go into the studio.
Damn. Okay, well, we can vamp a little bit. We're gonna talk standings in the next segment, but this is like because we were gonna do a show before the Bucks game, and we were gonna say 2-1. Is that crazy? And now it's like I'm praying for 1-2 after how that Bucks game went.
Yeah, but like, how does that game? Is it just because they threw it away? Is it just because they had a lead and threw it away? Is that what does it? Like that's worse to you than when, like, say the Lakers games or other games recently where they're not even in it?
Yeah, the fact that they weren't able to close with Giannis off the court for the half of the fourth. That's why, like, if they would have lost by 1 on a last-second shot or something, you're like, oh shit, that sucks, obviously. But they were in such a position to win. They was their game. Like, and there were some good things. Bogdan found
after playing from behind a little bit. It was like back and forth.
Totally. Like they
it
were.
Wasn't like a wire. It wasn't like a wire to wire thing where they then just blew it in the fourth.
That would have been a lot worse. Yes, very good call. But yeah, it's just that issue of like the close, right? Just being able to really put a team away. And yes, that's obviously so much. It's different than it used to be. Scoring is back and forth like that. But there was just like the fouling was brutal. Again, I know the refs.
That part I think is difficult because that to me is sort of uncharacteristic for this Clippers team, especially against a guard in Dame who they've seen so many times and historically have played and have historically played really, really well. So I can see for the people that are really irritated with this loss, I can see that, like some of the things that are a little bit more uncharacteristic. I can see, looking a little bit gassed in the fourth after an all-star break, raising your alarm bells. That certainly makes sense. This one isn't worst for me, though.
Fair. It's not the worst one yet.
Yeah.
All right, let's do our player of the back-to-back picks. The Clippers have a back-to-back. They get a team that is on a big rest advantage and then a team that is on a borderline rest disadvantage in the Pacers and Pistons. We cannot pick James Harden, Norm Powell, or Ivica Zubac or Kawhi.
I'm throwing a curveball at you.
What do we got?
Now, typically, they would be excluded from the Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Norm Powell, Ivica Zubac player of the game. However, with questions about his injuries arising, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going Norm Powell.
You're saying Norm Powell, he's playing both games.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
Adam, you teleported.
And you can take that to the bank.
So just a heads up, we're doing our player of the back-to-back picks. We just talked a little bit about Pacers and Pistons. Which of these games are you more concerned about? I think the Pistons game is a must-win based on their travel schedule. We get them on the second night of a back-to-back. It's a 3-4 for them. They travel the first 2 games, and then they get the Clippers at home. Which one are you leaning for a must-win here for the Clippers?
Well, I think the tougher games in Indiana. I do agree with you. The Pistons game, they have to win. They can't start 0-3 on this road trip.
No.
They can't. And the problem is, if you chase the Indiana game with, let's say, Kawhi and Ben Simmons both playing that game, and you lose it, and you're not going to have them the next night. That's scary. Plus, does Norm play that game? Is not going to play in a back-to-back now. I know he's Will's player to watch, but I'm going to go with well, I wanted to say Big Zoo, but that's crazy. We can't do that.
You might have to rethink some of these rules though if they keep playing not very good, because like when the team's playing well, you obviously can't pick them, but when they're not playing well,
I'll go with Bogey Ball.
okay, he found his shot against the Bucks. Like
he was good. He was really good. I mean, he's been good in 2 or 3 games so far.
We haven't talked about Bogey enough. He's looked really good the last 2 games.
He's a low-key guy. Yeah, he's playing. I like the Bogey pick for player of the back-to-back because he fits the mold. He's a bench guy who can get his own shot and go on a streak. That's That's exactly what you need to avoid.
Sneaky old though.
Sneaky old. Will's shocked. Will's #1 Google search is Bogdan age real with a question mark on it.
Forged birth certificate he made to be older so he could play basketball a little earlier.
Yeah. All right. So
I haven't seen
Will.
I've never seen it.
Will, do you want to stick with Norm Powell as your player of the back-to-back?
Oh yeah, he's playing both, baby.
He's playing, mark it down, baby. And then we got Bogey. Man, we didn't even really talk about it, but it felt like a KPJ revenge game last night. He played his best game of the season, which was annoying as hell. I'm going to go.
Have it. Keep it, buddy. Keep the revenge.
Yeah, honestly, that's fine. I'm going to go, and we're going to talk about this guy's spot in the rotation. He hasn't exactly been lighting it up. I'm going Derek Jones Jr. We're going to need some legs. We're going to need some guys to bring some energy. He could feast against the Pistons based on just how their travel schedule and everything like that. Derek Jones Jr. being able to get the Clippers some easy transition buckets, get the team excited, I think will go a long way in this back-to-back. And you can take that to the bank, as Will would say. Adam, any quick final thoughts before we start talking about the Clippers? One big thing each of us thinks they need to work on for these final games. Because the standings are brutal, and they got a tough stretch coming up.
They need to win both these games, I think. If you want to be a top 6 seed in the Western Conference, Minnesota's coming. The Lakers did have a miserable loss to the Charlotte Hornets, but bounced back last night, unfortunately. So it's going to be a race to see who can hold on to a top 6 spot, I think, between those 3 teams right there.
And wouldn't you know it, we have some pretty important games coming up against one of those teams. Coming up after this quick audio break, we're going to talk the 27 games left after the All-Star break. And then one big thing each of us wants the Clippers to work on. We have ads on audio. If you don't want to deal with the audio ads, you can always watch us at youtube.com/@ClippersPodcast. Some quick audio ads. And then what the heck do the Clippers got to do? Coming up in 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back into Clips and Dip. If you were singing the Clippers' praises going into the All-Star break on a win streak, you're probably bemoaning their terrible fortune right now. However, there are 27 games left after the All-Star break. We're going to talk about what is something to work on for the Clippers. At the time of recording, we are currently 6th in the standings, about 2.5 games back of the Lakers, who have dropped us a couple of favors in losing a couple of winnable games. So we need to take advantage and tighten that gap a little bit. And we will have 2 opportunities to take them on against the Lakers. Look, the Clippers, it was sort of a mixed bag, but I feel like they were headed in the right direction at the All-Star break. One game after, things feel a little different. Adam, where are you at? What is your one big thing that this team needs to work on to stay in the playoff picture after the All-Star break?
Are we doing play off over play in? Sorry, just to level set that. We want them out of the play in this sense, or is this counting the play in?
They're not. They need to stay in the playoff picture by not being in the play in.
Okay, that's what I meant. Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
I need them to work on Kawhi being a top 10 to top 5 player in the NBA again. To be honest, we're 16 games in now. I need to see Kawhi start to step on the gas a little bit. if there's something there, I need to see it because there's 27 games left in the season. How many back-to-backs are left? 6 or 7?
Yeah, something like that.
So he might play 20 games. Like, he doesn't have much time to show that he can be the all-NBA version of himself that he was last season. I think it needs to start to happen here. Like last night, it took him 22 shots to get to 25 points. I understand the minutes situation. It's difficult to adjust, but he's got to start. And I don't know why. I don't know if you guys have noticed this too. It feels like they're not running much elbow action with Kawhi Leonard.
When they
why are
are
we not doing that?
It's usually working out. When they are, it looks nice. There's spacing, but you'd think they'd be you'd
Too
think
sleepy.
they'd
Can't
be
do that right now.
hammering that to get him comfortable.
Yeah, it seems like he's having to do far too much to get to his comfort spots on the floor. When why not just find him on the elbow and get him in that place where it feels like he can't miss in the mid-range for 2 weeks? That's the Kawhi I think we need to see for them to stay a top 6 seed. That's what it has to be. So I think there is some stuff that they can do to give the best chance of that happening or to get the most out of him. And that's getting it to him in his sweet spots on the elbows.
It's a pretty good one. If I'm going to be, that's a really good, like we talked about it last segment too. Kawhi getting to 36 minutes really helps games like last night, right? Where if he's playing the full 36 that Ty Lue wants him to play, things are probably going a little differently in that game if Kawhi's not having to sit out. I think I'm not sure what they can do about my one big thing. The rotation, and I've expressed this on this pod a couple of times. The rotation with factoring in Norm being in and out of the lineup, Kawhi not doing the back-to-backs, Ben Simmons not doing the back-to-backs. We're still switching out starters between Dunn and Derrick Jones Jr. and stuff like that. We got to figure out this rotation. And like to your point, Adam, there's only 20 games left with a full rotation. If everyone stays healthy and Kawhi follows the don't play on back-to-backs thing, that's only 20 games with the full rotation. And we're still figuring out how to integrate, the backup 5 because we just got them. I do understand that part, but like not having a set rotation, it makes me nervous for what this team's going to look like down the stretch because it's just too difficult to.
It's a lot of variables. It's a lot of variables to figure out on top of trying to work in guys who are factor to be at least somewhat significant pieces of your playoff rotation. You, as the guy who just went with Derrick Jones Jr. as your player of the back-to-back, where do you think he should be in the starting lineup? Is this your rallying cry? Is this you grabbing Ty Lue by the scruff of the neck and saying, "Hey, this guy needs to be in the starting lineup"?
I'm not.
Charles Mockler, stand on business, and Derrick Jones Jr. needs to be in this starting lineup.
I will say I stand on business with Derrick Jones Jr. being in the starting lineup. I am not going to grab Ty Lue or anybody by the scruff of the neck and tell them that he needs to be in the starting lineup. But I don't even think I'm in the minority with that. Like we've seen how good the team. Adam, you talked about.
Adam, where are you at?
The best.
You're a dunhead.
The best starting 5 with the full roster. Like it makes sense, fully healthy for Derrick Jones Jr. to be out there. No disrespect to Chris Dunn, but he's an offensive black hole. We can't have that on the starting lineup.
Chris Dunn, little known fact, 6 for his last 7 from 3 guys.
I said, but the game
after going, what was the tally before? Like 3 for 22.
It was like 1 for 22.
Yeah, it was bad. Well, I don't know if it's really hurt them that much doing the rotating thing with him or Chris Dunn. Like the Memphis game, it worked out just fine. But if I had my druthers, I would just go with DJ starting every game because that's the lineup with about 150 minutes that has the best starting lineup net rating in the NBA. And it's easy to figure things out with DJ because he is more multiple than Chris Dunn with guys he can guard.
Yeah, Chris Dunn is a better defender of specifically guards and stuff, but you're right. Like Derrick Jones Jr. can guard 4.5 positions on the floor.
Per 36 though?
One of those per 36 numbers. But yeah, and the rotation thing too, it's not like say the Clippers, they have to be in the play-in and they win that game, right? we get to the playoffs and we're gonna have different series. I don't know. It just makes me nervous. Maybe I have PTSD from Clippers having to kind of rotate lineups before, but I don't like that the rotation is having to be, as Will said, there's a lot of variables. And as a Clippers fan, I fear change, and we don't need any more variables than we're already dealing with. So that would be my thing to work on. But I also don't know how you work on health, because part of it is health, and I don't know how the Clippers can work on that.
They don't know. They still haven't figured it out.
That's a very good point too. So I'm going rotation. Will, what is your one big thing, and why is it try and get Kevin Porter Jr. back?
It needs to be done.
Rescind it.
My thing is about it all year, but like, when are we taking off for Ivica Zubac? Like, when are we going to be able to see him throughout the game as a viable offensive option? I do think that it muddles it, even with Ben Simmons. Although I know the two aren't going to play together, but you're still kind of game planning around two different centers and skill sets. Well, you disagree?
Not with
they've been playing together.
Yeah, like I agree they should.
No, but that's not going to be permanent. That's not forever. We talked about this while you were wherever the hell you were. Not pulling.
I was in
the void. But Ty Lue said he wanted to try Ben Simmons out with basically every rotation player. Even those two together, which I don't know why he would even need to try that. But I do think that, that again is another type of player that at the center position offers something different. I realize they're trying to use them in some of the same short roll sets. They're trying to do some of the same things. But I think that, Ivica Zubac needs to remain active offensively throughout the games. And it's one of those things that just feels really simple, especially when they go through these droughts, when the Clippers are, for whatever reason, choosing to take the most difficult shot on the floor, and they're just not going down. And when they are going down, it's fine. Like, hey, you want to work twice as hard to get the same amount of work done. I've got coworkers like that. I love those folks. That's great. But when it's not going down, it's a little bit more frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking to number one Zubac fan, Adam Oslin here. I hope it changes because, Will, you brought up the La Murray thing about how his shots per game or per quarter.
It's 33% less in the fourth quarter versus every other quarter. And there are games that you can point to that it makes sense. It wasn't an option on the floor. I'm all in favor of, if teams are going to throw the double at Zoo, you have better options on the floor. You have other options on the floor. I think that's fine. But otherwise, you need to get into an easy offense, especially when you're a team that struggles to get buckets.
I was as mad as anybody and frustrated with what happened last night and him not getting a shot up. But I had to call myself out because it's easy to put out a tweet that says, how does Ivica Zubac not get a shot? It's a lot more difficult to actually watch the entire fourth quarter with him in the 8 minutes he was out there, 7 minutes, and see that, okay, they're playing zone. He's probably going to have to give it up right away. And multiple times when they tried to get it to him, there was a turnover. So it's not like they didn't try at all. It's not like it was just Brook Lopez playing him one-on-one. It's a lot more complex than that. And you do have two of the best ISO guys. The two best ISO guys in the game last season were Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. Most efficient. And they mash up hunted. And the Bucks were really good. I think sometimes people got to remember the part where two good teams are playing each other, and sometimes the other one gets the best of you. It does happen. They're all expecting to win too.
So let's say the Clippers fix all three of these things, and we get all of our druthers met. Do you meet the druthers? I don't know. We have our druthers in a bucket, and things are going great. Where do you see the Clippers finishing seeding-wise? I know Will's talked about it. We have two up to this point of the most important games of the season against the Lakers coming up seeding wise. We're down 2.5 games to them. Will, where are the Clippers finishing seeding wise should our druthers fall from the sky?
Man, that's really, I just think it's going to be pretty difficult to make up much ground. I think optimistically, which is kind of, where we've been at for a while. I think optimistically, probably looking at that 4-5 matchup. optimistically.
And I think
I think
on the
I think
opposite,
holding on to 6, like, to me, that's not the worst either, though.
and they are barely holding on right now. We're a half game up on the
Yeah.
Wolves. They're not catching the Grizzlies, I don't think, unless something really crazy happens with that. Yeah, I think 4 or 5, and I think we'd be closer to 5.
Oh, if they're in
We'll
the 4
really
or
know
5
how
matchup,
close
I
we'd
think
be.
it's firmly 5. I don't think they're covering. I just don't know that they're gonna get 3 games up. I don't know.
I think
And if they do, they need to win 2 of the games. They need to win both the games against the Lakers coming up for their best shot at that. So yeah, I'm gonna say, I think 5, 6. Adam, where are you at, bud?
I think we're right back where we were with predictions to start the season, where we all kind of said they're a 6 seed at best. Like, that's best case scenario, that they end up with the 6th spot. Now, if they do beat the Lakers in both games, then they have a chance. Then they have a real chance to get the 5 spot. But I wouldn't hate a 6-3 matchup as it stands right now against the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round. Like, that's ideal to me.
I don't know if ideal is the word that I would use, but I can understand. I can see how you could want it. But yeah, that's a great point. We've come full circle now, right? Like, we saw this team overperform and think, holy shit, maybe there's something there. We get that 4 into it rocking for the first home playoff series, and now we're firmly back to like 6 is where it feels like we're going to be.
Hey,
hanging.
if Kawhi finds the version of himself from last season, then they could go like 15-5 in his last 20 games of the season. That's the difference maker.
That would be ideal. So they go, in my mind, in that scenario, they're going 17-0 in March. They're winning a couple other games here and there, and then they're losing the other one.
Where we start Simmons next to Zoo.
Yeah.
Fucking over. It's game over.
Yeah. You send Norm to the bench. You start Simmons,
25-2.
Eubanks,
25-2, baby.
Patty Mills. We also got to figure. We haven't talked about this very much before we get out of here. There's some guys who still are going to be worked into the lineup. Like, is Patty Mills going to play at all? Is Drew Eubanks going to play any real minutes? Like, it just feels like we're at that thing again now where it's like these guys are just here. No disrespect to them at all, but they're not playing.
I think Drew Eubanks could situationally against a bigger team.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think Patty Mills was brought in to be a rotation player. I think he was brought in to entice maybe Ben Simmons, and he's a great locker room guy.
Yeah, he knows how to win. Yeah, that's a good call. All right, any other final thoughts before we head out of here? I'm in weirdly balmy Montana right now. Adam escaped the void. Will is at his house. Any final thoughts before we send these Clippers fans back to their weekend?
It gets better.
All right. It gets better. All right, we're going to be back early next week. Maybe do some post-game streams. It depends what we're doing. Here's to a good stretch, because we have some very stressful games coming up. Will, where can people demand that their bosses, union leaders, male people listen to this podcast just to help themselves?
Yeah. If you want to help yourself, you can check out this podcast wherever you get your podcast. If you happen to listen over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can leave us a little rating and review. Always helps us out. If you wanted to watch us, which you should, you can do that over at youtube.com. That's at Clippers Podcast. But yeah, however, you consume this show, just know we appreciate you.
We absolutely do. And Adam, we got to do it. One positive thing for the Clippers heading into this back-to-back.
Just got to feel like at some point the three-point shooting by opponents is going to turn back in the Clippers' favor. Last 11 games in first quarters, they're almost shooting 50% from 3 against the Clippers. Last 4 games in first quarters, they're almost shooting 60% from 3. Last 11 games overall, all quarters, they are shooting 40.3% from 3 against the Clippers. While the Clippers are still top 10 in opponent 3-point percentage on the season. They have been good in this area. What is happening here? Pacers, please cool off. And they did have a 50-point quarter. I think that was a franchise high for them yesterday. So maybe they got it out of their system, and the Clippers will get an Indiana Pacers team that will be overly confident and lay down a little bit.
There we go. I hope it happens. Thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you to watching. And as always, let's go Clips. I don't got my fireworks.